Welcome to the Seal Center on the campus of Mississippi State University, where it's Thursday. It's not the day before the day. Steve, we'll be heading out tomorrow. I know I will to Texas A&M. You have some other issues this week. And one of those issues is actually here in town. Not really an issue, but, well, I guess you could call it an issue because in my hand we have one of the inaugural copies of Stark Villains. Steve, congratulations on book number 2 coming out. Tell us your plans for the weekend of the signings.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, Dave, the best laid plans usually go awry. But so I had to cancel my trip to College Station. I hate not being there with you. We have such a good time together covering Mississippi State sports. But we got a lot of pre-ordered books that we've got to sign and get out, and so we're going to take care of that this weekend. The full shipment comes in tomorrow. I got some advanced copies today. Happy to have them. It's one of those things, too. It's like you spend so much time and you look at words on the computer screen, but it's so great to hold them in your hands. And so many great stories in here, so many great Mississippi State personalities that they were really so generous with their time and their knowledge, David, and to be able to document their memories of Mississippi State. Some big wins in rivalry against Ole Miss, and this is the first in what I hope to be a series of books of big wins in Mississippi State history. I thought about, we'll possibly do one with Alabama, and people have joked that there could be a Cliff Notes version of that because not a lot of wins over Alabama. But we'll move it around a little bit. We're going to have some fun with this. I think it's time Mississippi State's story got documented for future generations.
Well, and if you need to for the Alabama series, I can let you borrow my I was there bumper sticker and my press pass from the game, which proves, yes, indeed, I was there. But that's for the future. All right, the more immediate pressing matters. Mississippi State leaves tomorrow for Texas A&M. And by the way, it looks like the weather game day will be good, but traveling weather for all you dogs heading up to College Station, Bryan area, looks like storms and possible flooding in that region of southeast Texas. So be careful in your transit. If I have any trouble, at least I'm in a rental, so Enterprise will take care of that for me. All right, we had to make our picks today. I really would love to pick the Bulldogs with a chance in this one, and I think they do have a chance because there's some things about the matchup that bode well. State certainly has a winning streak over the Aggies, but to my mind, it comes down to this. The Aggies have won some games at home and on the road in SEC play against peers. The Bulldogs have yet to do that. What will it take for Mississippi State to make the breakthrough this weekend against a pretty comparable A&M team?
Comparable is the right word. These teams, and we've studied them all week, very, very, very similar. Youth struggles to travel on the road. That's one of the things that you think about. And under Jim Moorhead, this year especially, the Mississippi State Bulldogs have not been a good road team. Even on a neutral side against UL Lafayette, it took a little while to kind of get the Bulldogs woke up. But the reality, David, this is a game Mississippi State doesn't have to win, but we certainly want to win. I think in order for State to win this ball game, they've got to play clean and have a little bit of help from A&M. And A&M has proven, especially with Kellen Mond as their quarterback, to be a team that's willing to help the competition.
Of course, I expect every Aggie over there they'll be checking the sidelines to make absolutely sure Nick Fitzgerald is not warming up for the Bulldogs because he had almost 1,000 career yards, 11 touchdowns against the Aggies. Garrett Schrader, opposite end of the spectrum now. His first meeting with the Aggies, we had a chance to talk to him on Tuesday night. He's optimistic about the game. He feels like he can go out there and make plays. But again, youth is on the road right now. The key to Garrett Schrader's success, though, is just getting Kylan Hill, a veteran of these games who was part of the victory in 2017 on Kyle Field, back up to speed. What has he been missing the last couple of weeks? Maybe a little tentativeness, maybe not quite 100% healthy, but more so, what does he need to do to be the Kylan Hill we know he's potential?
Well, I think he's got to have some room to run first and foremost, and that's really been the case in SEC play outside of the Kentucky game. Mississippi State's offensive line has not been very physical. We thought we saw a step forward last weekend, but against Tennessee dominated the line of scrimmage, and it was an embarrassment. And you saw Kylan Hill get frustrated, and you'd like to see him be able to kind of maintain, kind of an even keel emotionally, but he is a guy that wants the ball in his hands. He wants to make an impact on the football game, and when there's no room to run, he's going to get frustrated. We're all going to get frustrated, but I think that's what has to happen is this offensive line has to play well. A&M has not been a great run defense, okay? They gave up a lot of yards last week. They've shown that they're very susceptible to the big play. Ole Miss, which is a one-dimensional offense, really had some success on the ground, so hopefully State can replicate that this weekend.
In fact, and I wasn't able to watch the game live, much of it, but in review, the Rebels probably should have won that game without a blocked kick and a turnover because Kellen Mond, for all his abilities, he must drive Aggies crazy because he's a guy who can win a game and he's a guy who can lose a game. And he made some plays the last couple of years against State, but he's also thrown some balls away, made some poor decisions. The key, though, is the Bulldog defense has really struggled to put pressure on quarterbacks. If you don't pressure this guy, he can tear you apart with his feet or his arm. We know that Willie Gay will not be available this week, and I say we know that. We're certain of that, or Lee Autry. What can this Bulldog defense, which showed some progress last week without those guys, do to kind of keep it under control? We talked to Coach Chris Marv last night, and he said you just have to make your plays and try to do your 111th.
I agree with Coach Marv. You got to make your plays, and I think this is an offensive line at A&M that is not nearly as talented as what we saw with LSU. And LSU had a guy or two out last weekend, and State was able to have really their best game of the year as far as changing line of scrimmage and getting some penetration, the 3 sacks on Joe Burrow. And then there were some plays where State was able to engage in the backfield and kind of limit Clyde Edwards. And so when I think about this group, A&M has struggled to throw the deep ball. They have struggled to protect Kellen Mond. And in many respects, like Garrett Schrader, he is a guy that can go make some plays with his feet. What I think you have to do with Kellen Mond, you've got to contain him. You've got to make him stay in the pocket and be a quarterback. And that's where they have really struggled. When he can get out and kind of freelance a little bit, he can do some big things for you. But this defensive front has got to win those one-on-one matchups, get into the backfield, because Mond is essentially a 1 or 2 read type quarterback. The deeper he gets into his progression, the happier his feet become.
By the same token, Garrett Schrader's probably at that same level, but only because he's a true freshman and still learning this offense. And Mississippi State, one reason they seemed to play better in offense last week, yes, 2 touchdowns, one which really didn't matter, but still, you scored a touchdown at LSU before they scored a touchdown at all. He's still learning, but he shows creativity the Bulldogs need at this point. So it's kind of a fine line for Joe Moorhead and Andrew Briner in that you've got a guy who can improvise, make things happen. So how much of a leash do you keep on him to stay within the game plan, and how much do you just turn him loose to do what he does?
You know, interestingly enough, David, last weekend, Garrett Schrader threw for 5 yards less than any quarterback, the quarterback high at Mississippi State in the Jim Moorhead era, 238 yards, 5 yards away, against probably the best secondary they're going to face all year. And so there were some plays to be made in the passing game. And people always think of Garrett, they think, okay, well, he'll tuck it and run, and he's a great runner when things break down. But I thought we saw him take a step forward as a passer. Yes, he had a couple of interceptions. One of those was just a great play by the defense. You know, and some of those things are going to happen. You know, you'll wait a half beat longer, allow the receiver to uncover on that crossing route. That's what maturity teaches you. I think Garrett Schrader is on the verge of having a breakout game. Maybe it's this week, maybe it's the next week. But I think if Mississippi State can limit the turnovers, and that's really been the issue, because they've been able to create a lot of turnovers. And last year, David, that was a recurring theme. What do you guys need to do to create turnovers? Well, they're creating turnovers every week. The problem is State's giving it back about as well as they're taking it away. If they can eliminate that problem on Saturday, I think they've got a real chance to win the ball game.
Again, that gets back to a young quarterback and an offensive line that has had issues the last several weeks there. But you put those together, and certainly you've got veterans of this team that know what it's like to win on that field, who know what it's like to beat the other maroon and white team in this league. By the way, they have the shoulder stripes. That's about the only way you're going to tell the uniforms apart from a distance there. And when you're in the A&M press box, you are at a distance because it is a humongous stadium. Amazing what $500 million can build for you, even out in Texas. All right, one area the Aggies do not struggle, punting the ball. They have been punting for years very well. They've got probably the best punter in the country, Tucker Day. Maybe he's had a few ups and downs the last couple of weeks, but that's a guy who can match kicks when he's on his game with anybody. We haven't talked much about state special teams lately. We did interview Jace Crispin last night, and we asked him, have you figured out your range? He said, yeah, 51 yards after the kick at Tennessee into the wind, by the way. State special teams have been such a sore point this season. Is this the kind of game where you could see some Bulldogs make something happen? Maybe not in the punt return game unless he outkicks coverage, but just getting after it, because the Aggies showed, I mean, they're going to block you from the Rebels. They're going to come after your place kickers and your punter.
Yeah, and that's true. And one of the things, too, the Aggies, similar to Mississippi State, have had some special teams issues this year. I mean, matter of fact, they just kind of shook things up and put starting linebacker Anthony Hines on most of the coverage teams just to kind of get some more sure tacklers on their return, their coverage units. And so, again, you could look at everything that State's done this year, and A&M's done the same thing. They've won one more ball game than Mississippi State has, and they won that game on the road at Oxford. And so, special teams in games like these, David, you know, a non-offensive touchdown means everything. Winning the battlefield position means everything, because this is going to be likely a one-play game. The team that makes that play is going to win. The team that doesn't is going to lose. And that's similar to what we saw last week with the A&M Ole Miss game. Is Ole Miss is driving to go up 2 scores and put the game away, and John Rice Plumlee has a fumble. They get a scoop and score. That proved to be the difference in the ball game. It was a 24-17 game. I expect a similar game this week.
Well, the one thing I will say and qualify to that, all of Texas A&M's losses, you can say, are legitimate to teams ranked number 1, number 8, and number 1 at the time. So, but they were still losses. But they whipped up on a couple of teams. They won a close game on the road. So, again, they have some winning experience the Bulldogs just need to do. But if the Bulldogs can play well this weekend, much less win the game, you really feel good about their chances going into the decisive November season. And it was interesting that Coach Moorhead was asked about, are you stressing bowl eligibility? And he said, no, not at all. All they can worry about right now is getting win number 4, whether it's this week or next week. What if you could have one thing besides a win out of tomorrow, what do you want to see from the Bulldogs?
I want to see a clean game. No pre-snap penalties, or at least a limited amount of pre-snap penalties. No hitting behind, outside the lines or after the whistle. Eliminate those disciplinary issues and then win the turnover battle. You go out there and create turnovers and don't turn the football over. And that's the thing State has done throughout the years, given an opponent the short end of the field and hadn't been able to kind of cash in when it's been their opportunity. And that's State can play clean, eliminate penalties, eliminate these silly turnovers, and I think you've got a chance to have a great November.
So that's our take from here Thursday at the Seal Center. Again, I'll be traveling tomorrow, and I'll be live at Kyle Field at 11 o'clock kickoff Central Time when the Bulldogs take on the Aggies. I'll be on Gene's Page 24/7 with a game thread going. Steve, you'll be back in here taking care of Stark Villains and your obligations to your publishers. Again, great Christmas present, by the way. And not just a Christmas present for all you Bulldogs, but maybe for your favorite Rebels out there as well, since they are a predominant part in this volume. I can certainly attest to that. Mike Nemeth will be doing a flash story as well. Paul Jones will be keeping track of recruiting things, Robbie Falk as well. And so our whole crew will be busy at some point. And by the way, don't forget, Mississippi State basketball hosting a charity exhibition at 3 o'clock this Sunday against South Alabama, Humphrey Coliseum. The weather should be good that day, so I'll be on my way back from College Station. But you in the area should come out, watch Ben Howland's 5th team start taking place. By the way, congratulations to Quindary Weatherspoon and our latest and greatest Bulldog in the NBA. So a lot going on here. Vic Schaefer's team is getting busy as well. So basketball season is not far away. But just follow us tomorrow on social media and Gene's Page 24/7 for our crew at Kyle Field on the campus of Texas A&M University, the other maroon and white school in the South Union Conference. For Steve Robertson, this is David Murray.